Brothers and sisters, stop everything. What I'm about to tell you will reveal the true face of global power and how one African leader's refusal to bow changed everything. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m., not a gentle diplomatic call, not a scheduled conversation between world leaders. This was something else entirely, a declaration of war disguised as an ultimatum. Netanyahu's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Captain Traore, you have exactly 48 hours. 48 hours to what? To remember my place? To crawl back to the plantation of international approval? To restore Israeli mining contracts that exploit our soil while our people remain hungry? Reinstate our surveillance partnerships? Reverse every decision against Israeli interests in Burkina Faso? Do this immediately or face two choices. Two choices. Like a master offering a slave the illusion of freedom. Flee your country like a coward or surrender your presidency to us. The line went silent, but my mind roared with clarity. This wasn't diplomacy, this was extortion. This was the language masters use when slaves forget their position. But the real ultimatum came 30 minutes later. Same voice, same arrogance, different threat. Captain, let me be clearer. You have 48 hours to step down voluntarily or we remove you involuntarily. Your choice. Abandon your position or face complete destruction. I didn't let him finish. Prime Minister Netanyahu, I said, my voice steady as Sahel granite. Let me be clearer too. I don't negotiate with extortionists, I don't bow to bullies, and I certainly don't abandon my people because a foreign power threatens me. I hung up on the Prime Minister of Israel. In that moment, staring at the phone in my darkened office, I felt something I hadn't experienced since fighting jihadists in the desert. Not fear, clarity. They had just made the biggest mistake of their political lives. They had threatened a man who would rather die standing than live kneeling. Within 1 hour, my crisis team assembled. Defense Minister, Intelligence Chief, Foreign Affairs Advisor, the only people I trusted with what we were facing. Gentlemen, listen to what the Prime Minister of Israel just demanded of your president. I played the recordings. Netanyahu's voice filled the room with its arrogant commands. The silence afterward was deafening. My defense minister spoke first. Sir, this isn't policy disagreement. This is regime change. This is what superpowers do before they destroy you. My intelligence chief nodded grimly. We've tracked unusual activity for weeks. Satellite surveillance, cyber probes, suspicious money transfers. They've been preparing for your removal. Preparing for what exactly? Your overthrow. Either you step down voluntarily, or they create conditions that force you out. Destabilization, economic warfare, orchestrated chaos. 48 hours to choose between voluntary exile and involuntary destruction, between stepping down with dignity or being dragged down in flames. What are our options? My foreign affairs advisor whispered, accept their terms, step down, hand power to someone they approve, hope they let you leave safely. Never, I replied immediately. What else? Stand firm and prepare for every kind of war except military, economic, digital, psychological, political. I walked to the map of Burkina Faso on our wall, our small, landlocked country. 22 million people. No nuclear weapons, no powerful military, no leverage except our refusal to kneel. Sometimes, refusal is enough. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten the wrong African leader. They think I'll run because I'm outnumbered. They think I'll surrender because I'm outgunned. They think I'll abandon my people because I'm afraid. But they've made one critical miscalculation. They think this is still 1960. They think African leaders still jump when foreign powers whistle. They think we still believe their approval matters more than our people's trust. I picked up my secure phone and began making calls, not to beg for mercy, but to build an alliance of resistance. First call, Caracas. President Maduro, Israel just demanded I step down from office. I'm calling to tell you I'm refusing. Second call, Tehran. I need Supreme Leader Khamenei. Israel gave me 48 hours to surrender or face removal. Third call, Moscow. Connect me to President Putin. This is about regime change operations. Fourth call, Beijing. Priority line to President Xi. Israel is attempting to remove an African head of state. My advisors stared in shock. I was doing something no threatened African leader had done in decades, refusing to face the storm alone. Sir, this could make us enemies of the entire Western alliance. We're already their enemies, I replied. The moment I refused to restore Israeli contracts, we became a problem to be solved. The moment Netanyahu demanded I step down, we became a target to be removed. We might as well choose our allies while we still can. The next 18 hours became the most intense diplomatic marathon of my life. Emergency video conferences with leaders who had faced similar ultimatums, encrypted conversations with intelligence services specializing in countering Israeli operations, technical consultations with experts in regime change resistance. By hour 20 of the 48-hour deadline, I had assembled something Netanyahu never expected: a global support network. Venezuela offered political sanctuary if needed. Iran promised cybersecurity assistance against Israeli hackers. Russia indicated military advisors if the situation escalated. China suggested economic partnerships to replace Western investment. But the most important support came from an unexpected source: my own people. Word of Netanyahu's ultimatum had leaked. Not from my government, but from Israeli sources who couldn't resist bragging about their pressure tactics. By morning, every radio station in Burkina Faso was broadcasting the story. Prime Minister Netanyahu has given President Traoré 48 hours to restore Israeli mining contracts and surveillance partnerships, or face removal as a warning to other African leaders. Brothers and sisters, do you understand what happened next? Something beautiful, something powerful, something that neither Netanyahu nor his handlers had calculated in their regime change equations. The people of Burkina Faso rose. Not in violence, not in chaos, but in solidarity, in dignity, in the unbreakable unity that forms when a people realize their leader would rather risk everything than betray them. Students marched through Ouagadougou carrying signs: "Netanyahu cannot choose our president." Workers left their jobs to gather in the streets: "We choose Traoré, not Tel Aviv." Even market women closed their stalls. Our sovereignty is not for sale. By hour 30 of the 48-hour deadline, something unprecedented was happening. International media couldn't ignore the story. African Union emergency sessions, regional leaders making statements, global powers recalculating their positions. Netanyahu had intended to make an example of me, to show every African leader what happens when you defy Israeli interests. Instead, he had made an example of himself, showing the world what happens when foreign powers still think they can dictate to sovereign African nations. Hour 45, 3 hours before the deadline. My secure phone rang again, not Netanyahu this time, his foreign minister. "President Traoré, there seems to have been some misunderstanding in previous communications. Perhaps we could discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement." I didn't let him finish. "There's no misunderstanding. Your Prime Minister gave me 48 hours to step down or face removal. I chose neither. I chose to stand. Tell Netanyahu that Captain Traoré is not leaving his post. Tell him that Burkina Faso is not surrendering its sovereignty. Tell him that the age of dictating terms to African leaders ended the day he made his biggest mistake." What mistake? Threatening the wrong African. Hour 48, the deadline. No invasion, no cyber attacks, no orchestrated chaos. Just silence from Tel Aviv and solidarity from my people. Because they had learned what every bully eventually learns. When you threaten someone with nothing left to lose, you discover they have everything to fight for. When you demand submission from someone who chooses dignity over survival, you find yourself facing something unstoppable. When you try to make an example of the wrong person, you become the example yourself. Netanyahu's 48-hour ultimatum became 48 hours that changed everything. It showed African leaders that foreign ultimatums could be refused. It showed African people that their leaders could choose them over foreign approval. It showed the world that the age of dictating terms to sovereign nations was ending. But most importantly, it showed something that terrifies every imperial power. An African leader who would rather risk everything than betray his people is more dangerous to their system than any army, any economic weapon, any intelligence operation. Because that leader becomes uncontrollable. That leader becomes unpredictable. That leader becomes unstoppable. And that's what I became at 3:17 a.m. on the night Netanyahu made his biggest mistake. The night he tried to give orders to someone who had stopped taking them. The night he discovered that some Africans can't be bought, can't be bullied, can't be broken. The night he learned that 48 hours can change history, just not the way you planned. Brothers and sisters, that phone call changed everything. Not just for me, not just for Burkina Faso, but for every African leader who was watching, for every African person who was listening, for every African child who would grow up knowing that their leaders don't have to bow to foreign powers. Because that night, one African president hung up the phone on a prime minister who thought he could give orders, and the whole world heard the click. The response was immediate and explosive. Not panic, not fear, but pure, unfiltered rage. By noon, crowds were gathering outside the presidential palace, not to demand I comply with Netanyahu's ultimatum, but to demand I tell him where he could put his surveillance partnerships. "Traore stays," they chanted. "Our minerals are not Israeli property. No foreign surveillance in Burkina Faso. Netanyahu can make his own warning." The 48 hours. What happened? Streets erupt. Young people flood the avenues with signs. 48 hours, try 48 years. We won't be your resource colony. Netanyahu, African presidents don't take orders. Surveillance partnerships. Spy ops. Hour 30. The call. Netanyahu, 18 hours left. Don't make your people suffer for your pride. Traore, I will not step down. You're trying to remove a democratically elected African president for refusing extractive terms. Your mistake? You forgot to ask my people. Netanyahu, crowds won't protect you. Traore, those crowds are what's coming. 22 million Burkina Faso who won't accept foreign interference. Silence. Then Traore, you've just created the continental resistance. He hangs up. Hour 36, the assault. Intel chief. Banking hits, grid fluctuations, comms jammed, disinfo flooding, fake fled videos, forged Swiss accounts, officials calling for resignation. Response, backup spin up, distributed power keeps essentials on, encrypted channels stay live. Every fake is debunked within minutes. The meta attack, Western media blitz, authoritarianism, backsliding, aimed at discrediting African independence. Hour 40:42. Africa unites. Leaders call to support, not to caution. Mali. If they can remove you, they can remove any of us. Niger. Parliament condemns foreign interference, warns of continental sanctions. Ghana. AU emergency session. An attack on Burkina sovereignty is an attack on African sovereignty. Chad. High alert. Mutual defense if foreign intervention occurs. Result. Netanyahu's ultimatum unifies the continent around African democracy. Hour 45. The pivot. Netanyahu softens. Perhaps a diplomatic solution. Keep our business partnerships. Traore. Two fatal errors. You threatened a democratic leader and underestimated Africa's response. We want nothing except recognition of Burkina Faso's sovereignty. The era of dictating terms to African democracies is over. Hour 48. Deadline. Traore steps onto the balcony. He ordered me to step down or surrender our sovereignty. I'm still here. You are still free. Burkina Faso still belongs to Burkina Faso. Crowds thunder. Message, resistance. Not just to Israel, but to any foreign power claiming the right to pick African leaders or seize resources. The aftermath. Weeks to years. Week 1 to 24. 3 states announce reviews of contracts with political pressure clauses. AU resolution condemns ultimatums to elected governments. Continental Protocol created for mutual defense against regime change ops. The Ouagadougou Protocol. 23 nations sign. Any ultimatum, coercive diplomacy against one. Coordinated economic, diplomatic, and, if needed, security response by all. Parallel building. African Monetary Union accelerates an Africa-denominated trade path. African Space Consortium launches comm satellites. African Internet Infrastructure Project lays intra-Africa fiber, no external routing. African Leadership Academy, Kala, Uganda, trains leaders in dignified diplomacy, economic sovereignty, media warfare defense. Capstone, 48-hour protocol, cultural shift. 48 hours becomes a symbol in music and film, honor over compromise. Youth pivot from emigration dreams to study, build, and invest in Africa. Brain drain reverses, pride replaces resignation. Global echoes, leaders from Latin America and beyond cite Burkina's stance to reject ultimatums. A quiet network forms, states that say no and survive. Unexpected allies. A Jewish-American journalist delivers 50,000 plus signatures from rabbis, survivors, and peace activists. Condemn the ultimatum. Affirm self-determination. Clarity. This is dignity versus domination, not peoples versus peoples. The UN moment, year 3. At the UN Gay, Traore speaks as chair of Africa's Sovereignty Committee. A foreign leader gave me 48 hours to choose between office and principles. He believed phone calls could bend Africa. He was wrong. He looks to the Israeli delegation. No nation, however strong or scarred, may threaten elected leaders into submission. We are not anti-anyone. We are pro-dignity, pro-sovereignty, pro-democracy. Standing ovation. Africa, then Latin America, Asia, small states, parts of Europe. Message embraced. Dignity non-negotiable. Sovereignty universal. Ultimatums unacceptable. A veteran Ghanaian diplomat weeps. Today the world applauded Africa for standing firm, not standing down. The lesson. What 48 hours proved. What 48 hours. Ultimatums only work if you accept them. Threats only bind if you believe them. Hierarchies persist only when you consent to your assigned place. Tell young Africans, the power of an ultimatum is the fear you grant it. Refuse once, and those who threaten think twice. Real democracy proves itself under pressure, not on easy days. Bottom line, African democracy foreign threats. African dignity foreign pressure. Leaders serve their people, not external powers. The ultimatum expired. The president remained. The democracy survived. That is what sovereignty looks like.